And I'm displaying the units and the lesson checks that we are covering this time around. And it's self-paced, so it's no rush or no stress if you are not complete with that. I'll just recommend for you to go ahead and finish those lesson checks and unit reviews, because you will most likely see questions similar or almost identical to those. I can attest to that. Okay, I've sent breakout group links via email in different formats to hopefully everyone. Uh, if I did not send you one by the time we get to that point, please let me know. I have those available to send by email. Um, Once again, take a look at these lesson checks and look over them at your own discretion. These are just, I guess they're very good resources to me, because I spent last summer all over the place, but I also had a hard time going into level two, because I wasn't able to pace myself the same way I paced myself for level one. So just for the sake of the group, when you're returning back to this session, please let me know by uh, some way in the chat box, either uh, hello again, or I'm back, or whatever, so I can know to go ahead and return to instruction for before we go to our breakout groups, and to answer those questions from the first section. Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. And I'll just talk until everyone returns. We should have just a couple of, well, technically our time is up, but since I've been pacing fairly well, we should be on track. Um, thank you. The question that Miss, who asked me the first question? I have an answer. I don't recall. Okay, Miss Johnson asked the question about the two files. Once you select that you want an automatic conversion to from, say, PowerPoint to Google Slide, or from the Word, Microsoft Word, to Google Docs. Once you select that in your setting, it automatically sends your original to the trash, but it stays there for a while. If that's not checked, then you will keep both. Now, I've had mine checked for so long, uh, I don't even know what it's like. I hadn't looked for the other one, but I did some research while we were on um, individual activities. So that, to answer your question, it should be in the trash if it's an old version. I'm not sure, and I can find out how often the trash bin empties itself. Some software automatically empties itself, and others you have to initiate the dumping. That part, time wise, I'm not sure, but of course I'll check on that. So it should be in trash. Okay, 30 days. Well, if it's 30 days, in 30 days during the school year, mine is pretty packed. So since we have an unlimited storage, that's a good thing. But then on the other hand, some people feel like they want to keep the original just in case they are something happens to original on their device, or they leave the district and they want to go ahead and copy and get their whole drive and put it onto their personal drive, and they don't want to go back and forth. Now, there's always a way around that, but of course, you can always just convert it back. There might be some small minor changes you may have to make, and I know some of the major things that people usually complain about. Uh, the conversion of music files, MP4s in PowerPoint. Sometimes they don't work out as well when you upload, but I think Google will get that glitch out. Now, I don't know about the other way around. I've never tried to convert a Google anything into a Microsoft file. So the other way around, I've never done, but just because it's come up, I think I need to go ahead. Oh, okay. All your stuff is still in the trash. Well, that could be actually another way to save things. So I don't know. I need to look in mine. I'm afraid to look in mine because that's years of trash. Okay. Yeah, I've never converted back from an original to a doc and then back around, but I've definitely done one way, but not all the way in the full 360. But I'll play with it. That's usually how I spend my spare time on the computer, playing with Google stuff or just instructional technology in general, because I do some other things with it as well. In regards to the question that Ms. Yarbrough had about, now I've had that, and it actually gets extremely annoying when you have anywhere between 100 and 200 students, depending on how the district decides on how we're going to have our classes split up. Uh, Technically speaking, and I'll come out of this for a second, the Google Drive actually has these various sources where you can store your various blocks. So I titled mine first block. So this is where the original file is at for the student. Well, I don't know where that one's. I guess first block never. I've created files for students they never use because that sometimes, like I said, I overdo technology for some students, and others they just soak it up and they eat it up. But in this particular case, let me find one because I've archived most of my classes just because I didn't want students to continually still submit work. Okay, yes, okay. Yeah, Ms. Johnson, I've done that before, but what I meant by I've never converted a Microsoft Word to a Google Doc and then turned around and converted it back. I guess the same thing should happen, but I do know if you'd like to add tabs, I'm not, well, tabs sometimes, but boxes into your Google document, then when you go into in Microsoft Word, then it skews it off a little bit, so I've never done that portion. But yes, yeah, I'm aware of the download options, and I use them, and I tell my family about it all the time because they feel like Google locks you into Google options, but of course, Google wants to be all inclusive, so it gives you the ability to convert to whatever their choices are, and just to look at it. There should be PDF is on there as well. I don't know what you would use the plain text or the rich text format for, but someone that's building on a website could possibly use that part. That's too much for me. And I don't even know if I'd ever open that can of worms. But in regards to what Ms. Yarbrough was asking about and I don't even know if I'm answering the question, but I do know that you have, let's say, so we're in this Google G Suite training. I've had, okay, here we go. So your items are supposed to be in here, and I know this is how it usually pops up, and it gets so extremely annoying because it seems like it's always at the top of your feed. Oh, it never ends up in that one. Okay, there has to be a setting in Google Classroom, and I'll check on that just to make sure because it definitely gets really really annoying. And I would say you'd have such a hard time finding the original, you'd want to pull your hair out because it just seems so unorganized. But Miss Yarborough, I'll reach back out to you in regards to that because it's a setting. Because they used to do my classes, especially when we had more classes, it did it all the time. So I'd get really frustrated because, of course, when you were given an assignment, that one in particular is taking over the top of your drive. And that gets very, very agitating. So, yes, it definitely will dominate the top portion, and then you feel like you're drowning in students' papers, especially if you're giving them multiple within a short period of time. So I'll when I remember how I did that because it's something in Google Classroom that is combined with Google Drive that will sort it into the folder. But I'll reach back out to you, and then if we need to share with the group next time around, we'll do that. Okay, so where am I going? Okay, so in regards to the assessment or the lesson checks you just did, you should consistently see things that I present to you in the lesson check. Now, I do not look at the review at all because that's to me, in a sense, is almost like teaching to the test, and you don't need me for that. You can do that on on your own. I don't know if that even sounded appropriate, but I try to make it the instruction focus on what their lesson is supposed to be about, but I don't want just completely. If that's the case, I'll just screenshot each question and just give it to you like that. I see no purpose in that. So let's see. Oh, okay. So before I go to Google Docs, let me go to the the culprit, my groups, the Google group. So the only way I was able to, because I logged into my personal account to find out that that's not even an option. So the personal account does not have Google groups. You have to have a organizational account. So basically, for me to be able to see now, it's not even letting me go back. That is just the irony behind that. So I'm able to create a Google group going into the external group option, and you have to know this. So I suggest for you to go ahead and follow. I mean, you can go ahead and delete it again. I created one for the last training, and that's how I figured out that the school district had it blocked. And April asked me to not only take her out of it because she'd constantly get notifications because people externally would request to be part of the group, but just to delete it all the way. So whatever you create, please, and if you do forget, mention it to April that the reason you're creating it to be able to prepare for the exam, because you have to know how to do this or you'll be stuck when they're asking you to do it and you're brand new to it. So you can basically name your group anything, and I'm just going to go really really basic. I don't know if there's any groups out there like that, but if it is, it will tell you. So the group's email is basically going to be your group name combined with the group googlegroups.com. So you can give a description if necessary, and we're going to next. Oh, it's already taken. The irony behind that. Okay, that's actually kind of funny. What? Okay. I don't know what else to add. I'll add my last name. Now, if that one's taken, I don't know what's going on. Okay, obviously it wasn't. And I have to remind myself to delete it. And then it's giving you options. And this is the portion that I'm not sure why Clayton County restricts it because obviously it's giving us options to make it extremely private. So you can make your choices. I'm just, I'll give you an opportunity to look at it on your own and just read over the various different options there are, privacy settings, and you can add members. So I'll go ahead and add Miss Brazil. So of course it works just like any email option. It'll allow for you to add people from your organization through email, and I'll, Miss Brazil, I'll take you back out. And then the managers, you can add someone else that you want to have the capabilities that you have as the owner, and on and so forth. I'm just going over the basic stuff. I would love for you to go and to make sure that you take a look at it yourself, just so you're familiar, because throughout the exam it will ask you specific to set it on specific settings. So just because I'm going over it really quickly, do not, and I tell my students all the time, you have to follow instructions to get it all the way right. So my instructions are just kind of walking you through it, but you have to definitely read the instructions that the assessment is giving for you to get the point. So I've created a group. Well, I'm in the process of creating the group. And then once the group actually opens, it gives you various other options to create somewhat of a forum, because it's basically a way for you to have a discussion or conversation with people that are not part of your organization. So other educators, other counselors, other media specialists, and you can start a conversation through in this format, an email format, or you can, that's what we usually use, or you can start a new conversation. Well, obviously, okay. It has made some changes since the last time, because I literally just sent out a message a few days ago, and that's the beauty of it, and it's the downfall fall of Google, because it constantly changes. I literally just did a message uh, on the 7th or the 9th, whatever it said, and it didn't give me all of these options. Just make sure you're able to um, follow up with this. Okay, so I wanted to be able to show you, and it's not, okay. So everything that changes in here, of course, will change in the assessment, because they're not going to ask you any questions in regards to something that's not available anymore. So it used to be a box that would just pop up and it give me ability to either choose between an intro or just a conversation. And now I guess the intro is gone, because technically there is no point in that, but they used to have it available. So you can, within this, it's almost like you're emailing everyone at the same time that's part of your group. And people are asking, oftentimes they ask for you to share files and pictures. I have a Google Chrome file that I need to pull from my other group that I can share with you, that would help the students, as well as some of the Chromebook features. So I'll look for that and I'll share it with you. But it's basically just, in summary, gives you an opportunity to share your information with others. There's a way for you to control your members, and I'll click back out of that, and what their uh, capabilities are. If you can be an if you can moderate or just allow to post, or if you can edit the postings, and then you can actually block people. You can block people, and that's basically what it boils down to. Just the various different options to. It's almost like a blog without being a blog, because there's so many limits to who can actually participate. And then of course we have the roles: a member, manager, owner. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share about Google Groups. And so, Miss Brazil, I'll will whenever I get a chance, I'll delete that one. Going into Google Docs. All right, Google Docs, and many of you probably just familiar with the basics, so I don't want to spend too much time on um, a focus on something that we use on a daily basis. We've already discussed the fact that they're easy to upload and convert from Microsoft Word. It can also be just like any other shareable Google application. It can be edited. You can comment on it, or you can just make it optional for people just to view it. You have to remind, and I have to tell people because I work with various family members and friends on their resume, and they share their resume with me through Google Drive, and I just continuously remind them it's a live document. So every time I make changes, you don't have to download it again unless you actually want to print it. And the concept doesn't stick in people's mind that it's a live document, meaning that it changes in real time. So that's the big bonus in my opinion, because if and Google, I mean Microsoft has some options like that, but they're, in my opinion, are not quite as advanced on that end as Google. Now keep in mind that Google and Microsoft are not on the same platform, because Microsoft is definitely a software versus Google more so being a platform, and it's of course cloud based, so definite big difference. And then the other part is that you don't always have to share as an attached file. You can share it as an URL, which therefore makes it possible to become a web page. I've talked to students about that. We're not going to get into it this time around, but we'll definitely talk about it on the level two training that I'm speaking into existence. So and I'll just click on it really briefly. Make sure that you familiarize yourself with the various different options that are in regards to um, the page setup, and which allows for you to change from portrait to landscape, and of course the color. A lot of people don't know how to change the background of the whole entire doc, so that's how you change it in the page setup. You also want to be able to be familiar with the the view. All that is a little more technical, but the various things you can insert is yet you cannot insert an image, I mean a video as of right now, but of course images. I use a lot of tables. I use many different um, I do use drawings from time to time, and I use charts on occasion. But I do like special characters. But of course, my favorite are the Bitmojis, which I'll get into at the end if you're interested in that. The formats are pretty clear, and the tools are also what make it possible for you to be able to connect Google Docs with Google Forms. But of course, that's an add-on, so I'll focus on that on another occasion. So the next one in my presentation was, of course, Google Forms, which a lot of I've made a friend, a teacher that hadn't said two words to me once I explained just how wonderful Google Forms can be if you want to utilize them. You can create a scavenger hunt. You can create a digital escape room. There are so many different things you can do with Google Forms, and but the basics are really are just the fact that you can have objective or subjective questions, which are either well, you have an option, a choice, or you can have the free response. There's an option to embed YouTube videos in the question, as well as giving feedback, or excuse me, when students choose the wrong answer, you can give them a second uh, a second opportunity to look at instruction or whatever your video may cover. And the HTML can be embedded if you have your own Google site, or if you have a web page or website that you're working on a personal level. You can use the HTML from the Google form. That's why so many different venues now have forms, not just schools, but everyone else has some kind of form you can fill out, give feedback, or to answer a questionnaire. And it's specific on if you want people that are in your organization to be able to utilize it, or people outside. Specifically, parents, of course, always have a hard time if your Google form is locked in for the district, so that keeps them from being able to answer it, which can sometimes, if it's not parent specific, that's actually pretty good. But most of the time, you want your parents to be able access it. So the responses that students give are, of course, generated on a Google Sheet. So let me go to a Google form really quickly, and I'll just use the one that is the attendance log. So I've added attendance logs to all but one of these sessions because the district, of course, threw a training on me, and they hadn't decided if they're going to do it the 20 that Thursday or Friday, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to handle that, but we'll talk about that Tuesday. So if you're not already familiar, you're supposed to be able to go toggle between questions and responses, and your responses can be open in a Google Sheet. And I'm not going to open it just because it's, class. Well, I guess it's not classified information, but we're not in Sheets yet, so that's why I'm not going to open Sheets. But you should be able to, after today, be able to add a collaborator, which is the same thing as sharing the document in the sense of adding an editor. So here it's called add a collaborator. Um, You can make copies, which gives me the ability to make various different surveys without having to start a fresh one every time, especially if the format is similar. And there's some options here in the settings, which is the important part where you're able to determine if you want this to be restricted to Clayton County or whatever your organization is, or you want to be able to open it up to everyone, but I'm going to keep it restricted. Sometimes I hit limit to one response because the students will take a quiz 15 times until they get the 100. But let's see, the presentation portion of it is, and as a matter of fact, I'll take that off because you shouldn't even be getting that. You have to just make sure when you make copies, it literally makes copies of everything. So that would be the confirmation message that you can send to those that have completed your survey. And the last one, of course, is to being able to make it a quiz. So these are the basic things that they will possibly ask you to do that I recollect. I would still play around with these various features on your own time, and I will make sure that before we leave out, you will have some experience with every last one of these. So let me say that, of course, you can change your color where the little color palette is, and that's how I usually add my um, personalized banner up here. All right, so what I've done is I've done the same for this one. This section, as I did for the previous one, I've taken the skill checklist, and I made sure that you're familiar with what various features on forms that you should be accustomed to utilizing. And I say accustomed because you doing it once will most likely not make you accustomed, but it can, because some people have that instant recall. Once they've done it once, they can do it again. But I fall more into the two or three times. I have to do things repetitive, and the same thing for Google Docs. But these are just the various basic features. We're not talking about the editing portion. The editing within, say, per se, like you did in Google Slides, where you were able to insert or change the font or change the background. Those are actually, they're supposed to be given pieces of knowledge that you already have, because so much of it is already similar to to Microsoft Word. My apologies. And the same thing for the Google Drive, as well as the Google Groups. So I showed you how to get into the permissions, how to use how can it be used by our school? It's a trick question because it's not really for our district, but you should be able to create one. Write, whatever description. We looked at that, the permissions, the select the group type. It obviously has changed that because it's not given that option anymore. But if I come across that and it's still available, I'll make sure to point it out to you, because as I mentioned in the last 7 or 8 days, they've literally updated those features. And then I showed you how to invite members to the group, and the information is shared typically through an email format. But I think we've covered everything that is. If I haven't covered it, then my suggestion always is, if you can't find it and you spend any more than 4 minutes on something that you can't find, either ask me and I'll run it by you, or start Googling, and that's what all those Google Help and forum resources were created for. Uh, I've created only two groups. One of them is a Saturday breakout group. The other one is a Sunday. I've sent this to you. No. Okay, in regards, and I apologize if, okay, you just sent that. Okay, I've seen a couple of different questions. Okay, Ms. Howell, give me just a second. In regards to the Google Groups access, I've almost borderline begged for that. There is, we're not going to get a response to that. So the only way you'll be able to create a group is if you, it's almost like you have to force it. Not force it. That's why this keeps popping up. You can create a Google group for practice purposes by bypassing the district. So let me see if it'll do it one more time. Once I go into Google group, it allowed for me to bypass the block, but it just gave me a reminder that I'm doing it on my own, at my own risk. So when I clicked on create group, it told me I couldn't. It's telling me I can't because Clayton County has blocked it, and it said, you know, they're not going to open it. So I can tell you that right now. Just change it to googlegroups.com, and they'll let you practice on your school account, because your personal account shouldn't have it. So no, there's please. I'll say something to April about it because it makes it inconvenient, but she'll probably just tell me to use what we have, or to watch a video, but I'd rather you try hands on. But I wish there was a way to add a ticket, but they're not going to allow it, Ms. Johnson. Okay, what does it mean to edit form settings? I think I missed that explanation. Okay, forms settings right here. There, the forms doesn't have a lot of settings, but you can. Okay, and I may be going too fast. The settings are basically uh, the various features that allow for you to either collect the email. I like to collect the email addresses from students, because oftentimes if I ask them to give me their email, they don't even know their own email. So the form actually automatically pulls it from the district, from Gmail. So that will be one setting you can change. And I mentioned this setting right here, where you can restrict the participants right here to only Clayton County. But if you want parents to fill out this form, you want to uncheck this. And you have to remember that, because oftentimes, or it will actually, it's a good reminder to have it clicked if the students are taking a quiz on that, because sometimes you always have that one student that doesn't have their laptop charged, and they're trying to use their phone to take a quiz. And I've allowed that before, and that might be my downfall, but I've done that before. But it will remind them, hey, you're not signed into your Clayton County account, so it will not let them. So these settings, just take a look at them, and look at the various different options to see what will work best for you in your case. Okay, I've seen another comment. And the response destination forms is the sheets off. Yes, the response is the sheets. Yes, that's where all your responses go. And then, of course, once you open your sheet, you can put them in alphabetical order, chronological order, by response. But we'll get a little more into that once I start talking about the sheets. I think that would be it on that. Okay, so what I've done is I've created those two groups for the breakout. And here is my activity. So this time around, I try to stay time conscious. So I've given you tasks, and I not only want you, I need you to, whoever is the person that handles that portion. I don't know if everybody wants to do it. I don't, obviously you need to share it with everyone in your group. So that definitely needs to be a know-how, how to share it and then to access it. Can someone tell me how you access a shared document? Because we covered that last week. I want to make sure before we go into groups that you know how to access a shared. If you're not the person sharing it, if you're being shared to, how do you access? And whoever wants to volunteer with that answer, feel free to turn your microphone on. And if you don't know, okay, go to shared with me. That's correct. So you're just going into your drive and you're gonna find of course I have a ton of stuff open, but you're going to look for the share with me, and most of the time, unless of course a teacher. That's correct. You can also, most of the time, you'll get an email unless the person that shared it with you uncheck the email option. But most of the time, people don't even think about it. But I have so many students sharing stuff with me. If you're teaching students or if you're working with adults that are submitting things to you, be specific on how you want them to share it with you because you're going to have, especially if you have a Google Classroom, because you're going to have things coming left and right. And I told my students it's like a constant bucket that's overrunning with water. I'm trying to dip out. So I'm very selective. And I tell them, unless you specifically notify me in person, I will not look at the share with me. So in this case, that's appropriate. But if you have 100 students, then the share it with me option is not appropriate, in my opinion. If it works for you, then that's fine because that's your classroom. All right. So in the breakout sessions, there are various activities, and some of it I've discussed, and some of it you'll have to come up with a team. So I think each team has about 3 or 4 people in it. So we're just follow along. See if you can handle it on your own. And then if not, then we need to take out some time at the very beginning of session 4 and discuss what you could have had a difficult time with. But the key of it is you need to make sure that you're sharing the presentation in your group with everyone so you're not just working on this on your own, and then maybe come up with some type of system, because whatever system you come up with to communicate in the group, that's what you want to communicate with your students if you decide on doing breakout groups, especially if we're looking at going to virtual or partially virtually teaching our students. So that's definitely a bonus if you know how to manage a breakout group. And it's an experience for me. It's something that's new for us all. So I'm adding this activity into Google Classroom as an assignment. And I've given some feedback to those of you that asked for me or that submitted work, even if it's something really minor, I want you to know that I'm looking at it. So if you have some concerns about anything, then that's a good way for me to take a look. All right, so I'm adding the activity, and if you oh, let me give you my cell phone number. And the only reason I'm saying that, it's not like it's 500 people in here. If you just happen to have a question or concern, and this is coming from last week, the other day, I mean, Tuesday, if I'm already in one group, then it's kind of, you know, I'm not looking at another group, and I cannot turn all the sounds on because if I do, I'll have so much feedback. So that's definitely something else. I don't know if I have to literally pull all the groups in a different separate tabs, not lined up. So I'm working on that. So here's my cell phone number. You can feel free to text me if you get stuck on something, but otherwise, you should have the instructions you need. And I'm changing that to make a copy for each student. And y'all are almost ready to go. And I'll set that for tomorrow. And that's it. So let me know if you text me questions, or you can also add into the chat. And I'll see y'all in about 30 minutes. Check your email. On it. So luckily she has the timer going on our original meet. So I think that makes her the timekeeper. And Miss Howell, would you like to share your screen once you get the document up?
Okay, now let me ask you all the question about this. Okay, so I have your document, Ms. Johnson. I pulled up to share it with me. But how am I going to, let's say I'm not going to be the one to share my screen. let's say you're going to be the one to share your screen. How am I going to type in my document and look at your screen at the same time?
You don't have to, because when you type in the document that has my name on it, whoever has it shared onto the screen, like sharing it onto the Google Meet, really just for recording purposes, so that when she reviews the recording, she can see what we did. But you're not going to be watching what's on, none of us are going to be watching what's on the Google Meet screen. We all be, we may all be working on inside the document. Now, if there's a part that like somebody wants to point to, and like let's say Julie is talking about something and I don't know where she is on it, shared, we could go back to the Google Meet where the three eyes are now, and just pull it up there so that we're all looking at the same spot if we're lost. But otherwise, you don't have to watch the Google because we'll all be working on it at the same time in document.
Okay, I'm on here, and I just wanted to mention that everything Ms. Johnson just said is correct, because if you keep your sound on, you can still have that conversation, and you'll see each other's actions, because you should be able to see the little line that has your name next to it. So once you share it, you'll see multiple people typing. I mean, you don't have to type at the same time, but if you say per se you put the students in on a Google slide and you tell them all to work on a different slide together, you can just see all the different little, the little mouse is just going back and forth. So you really don't have to look at the meet. The meet is basically just your, almost like your reference point. So you can come back to the meet, but you don't have to, because you'll hear each other. You don't have to see it. Does that make sense? Because I'm just restating what you said, Ms. Johnson.
I mean, yes and no, because like right now I'm on the document that's been shared.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Um,
Can you share it with? Can you share your screen?
that's what I was getting ready to get to. How do I share it from right here? Because I don't see a place to share it from here.
Okay, go to the bottom of the screen, and just hit present now. And when you hit present now, to the bottom right where you can turn
The
off.
bottom of your Google Meet screen.
Right.
Oh, okay. Because I thought you meant I'm sorry. There is no okay from the Google Meet screen, not from this screen. Okay. Because I was like, there is no way. Okay, Google Meet and present now, right?
Yeah, present your entire screen.
My entire screen. Okay. Well,
Okay, here we go. So let's see what you have. So I asked Coach Hill to come into this group because the other group uh went into different directions. So I don't know if he's spectating or if he's participating, but I just want to let you know that he's coming in. I don't know. He tried to come in. I don't know if I approve. Coach, are you in here? Okay, he's in here. So now you have Miss Johnson's, and as you're say, I don't know, you see there's a pink cursor on the top left, and then there's a turquoise cursor on the bottom, more so towards the middle of the, yes, that one. So that's Miss Pate typing, but Miss Johnson can type. Miss Johnson is on the top, so if she needed to, she can type up there, and you should be somewhere. You can click down and maybe go to number 2, and once you put your cursor there, uh, yeah, go down a little, or anywhere on the document. That would be, well, you'll see yourself, but they can see you in another. You could be, well, so far I only see 2 people in the document.
you don't see me. I went down to number 2.
Okay. Well, if you're,
That's 4.
is this Miss Howells speaking? I'm sorry.
Yes, it's Miss Howell.
Okay, so as long as you see yourself, they can see you. I see your cursor. Um, but then I can't go down any further. I only see 2. So if you're down there, I can't see you, just because I don't see your entire screen.
So you don't see me moving the.
Oh yeah, I see. Oh yeah, I see all that. So that means you're in there. Everybody's active. I may not see it the way you see it because we have all have our own view of it. And since I'm not in the document at all, I don't see the same thing y'all see anyway. So I mean, I can be, but I'm not. So you're in the right direction. So right now you can leave that screen right the way it is right now, but you can click back on your document and you don't have to worry about the meat at all. Let the meat just be your auditory guide, but don't worry about having to click back and forth unless someone else has a question about it. But right now you can be on the actual document and talk about, what the questions are or what the activities are. So you kind of have to multitask, but it's definitely an option. I mean, it's definitely you're able to do both. But I would definitely not focus on the meat. Let the meat be a reference point. So in case you do have a question, you don't have to share it. Then it's already shared. But if you could, whoever one of you add Coach Hill into the document, then y'all ready to go. And if you don't finish today, there's no. I'm sorry. Okay. If you don't finish today, I just want you to be able to manage those tasks. And I think it's the collaboration that makes it a little more difficult, but it's definitely a great thing for, even if you're not in the classroom, if you have meetings with your colleagues or whatever, and you're at a distance, you can work on documents together without having to make multiple documents. But I'm going to mute myself and I'll let y'all go ahead and I'll see what happened to a
Thank
couple.
you.
Oh, you're welcome.